Hiya. Welcome to my Compound Life. I'm your host, Jonathan. Nice to see you. Thanks for watching the video. Before we get started, any chance if you can just hit the like button, hit subscribe if you like my content. Even if you don't, you mean just do it for the hell of it. Just hit the like, hit subscribe, and I promise I will try my very best to generate better content, more better content in the future, right? So you can see, based off my subscriber level, I'm literally a new content creator, trying to be a content creator. But anyway, will be good if you can do me the favor. Okay, so now it's the 18th of November in the UK, roughly about midday. Bitcoin price is at around, let me check. Bitcoin price is at around $91,000, right? Whew, that's pretty huge drop from the last time I posted the video, right? I think the last time I posted the video, we were still around 97,000 USD. Cannot quite remember, but anyway, it's pretty bad. But I wouldn't say very bad, right? That's why I always talk about, the importance of taking profit when we, given the opportunity, right? So let's have a quick look in terms of the Bitcoin ETF flow, right? For the 17th of November, Bitcoin ETF was an outflow by approximately $250,000. I think on the Friday, it was about outflow $500,000. Thursday last week, it was around 866 million. Whew. So mainly outflows for these 2 weeks. And even for Ethereum ETF in the US only, I need to highlight, it was outflow 182 million yesterday, 177 million last Friday, quarter of a billion last Thursday. Not good. But anyway, let's not be affected by all of this. If you know my channel, I don't really speculate in my investment. Well, okay, I do. A lot of these are speculative investment, but I'm not exactly a trader. So yes, we do speculate. We try to identify assets that can really give us good return in a short period of time. Otherwise, I would have gone for something so safe like the S&P 500, right? So we'll talk a little bit about Bitcoin today, like I always do, for now, right? So in my Compound Life, we don't just talk about Bitcoin and crypto. We're meant to talk about a lot more, like how do we go about investing for ordinary person like myself and still manage to get to a level that I can retire, right? We'll talk about Bitcoin, and today what I want to talk about is Bitcoin will eventually do its thing, right? Because I understand the sentiment out there right now, it's pretty negative. Check out X, check out a lot of my friends' circle, some of the crypto community. I think everyone are jumping into the conclusion that Bitcoin is pretty dead right now, okay? Pretty dead in a way that are speculating that Bitcoin will not return anymore or will not return anytime soon, right? But if we look at the fundamental of what's happening right now, right, in the market, and I'm not saying that with strong fundamental, Bitcoin price will immediately recover, but I just want to state the reason or the remark that I made earlier that Bitcoin will eventually do its thing, right? Eventually it will come back up. Maybe not immediately, maybe not by next month, because we obviously have a pretty bad October, November, and possibly December too, right? So usually if you look at Bitcoin historical performance, October, November, December tend to be the best performance for Bitcoin, right? However, this time around, it might be different, right? So with strong fundamental that I've mentioned earlier, right, in terms of the adoption, the hash rate on Bitcoin, right, in terms of the ETF buying, right, for the time being, it's still more outflow for the past 2 weeks, actually. But we are seeing strong inflow for when things are, building up, right? And we kind of suspect that things will return when we kind of get out of whatever situation that we're in right now, right? I wouldn't immediately conclude that we are in a bear market, but it does seem that, we are trending lower, and then eventually we might hit a bear market, right? So there are a few ways of slicing and dicing this situation, right? How I'm kind of looking at this. Okay, and also there are a lot more strong fundamental, like quantitative easing starting in December, right? No, I mean quantitative tightening will be starting in December, and then followed by quantitative easing, where money gets printed and so forth in the US, will be starting in January next year. They may or may not be a rate cut coming in December, which I think it's also a huge factor that are affecting the Bitcoin price, right? And if you look at the wider picture of what the hell is going on, it's not exactly just Bitcoin and crypto getting hammered, right? It's across the board, across the market. Look at your Tesla shares if you're investing in Tesla. Look at your Nvidia, right? Pretty much all of them dropped for the past week or so, right? So it's actually across the board. And of course, some might argue that, my equity, my stocks and shares, they don't drop to an extent like Bitcoin and crypto. But at the same time, you need to also highlight the fact that your equity, your stocks and shares do not increase as quickly as your Bitcoin and crypto too, right? So that's to look into it, right? So across the board, everything are dropping. I think the US government shutdown has really impacted the liquidity in the market, right? So from a fundamental perspective, right, I think personally, I think the bull market hasn't ended yet. But some might argue maybe the bull market hasn't ended yet because the business cycle hasn't, right? However, the Bitcoin cycle has definitely ended. It does felt like that, right? Especially when over the 2 weeks, we can definitely see a lot of Bitcoin whales, OGs. So these are individuals that held Bitcoin for a long time, for over 10 years. They've been selling fast, right? Trying to get the hell out of the market, right? So in that case, if that's the case, right? Great if you have been de-risking like myself, right? Although I must highlight that I haven't been taking enough profit either, right? Because I still have a little bit left that I kind of felt there could still be another rally coming up, right? So if you haven't, been DCAing out or pound cost averaging out, there could be a relief rally to retest on the 20 days moving average, and that's around 100,000 US dollars, right? So might be a good time if you feel uncomfortable holding your Bitcoin for such a long period of time. It might be a good time to de-risk or take profit a little bit, or simply just to wait for the business cycle to kind of start and come to an end sometime in Q2 next year, right? So a longer time frame. But one thing for sure, holding assets, as long as you can afford to hold, that you don't really need to sell immediately at the losses, right? I felt now might not be the best time to sell, right? Okay. If you can hold and have the expectation that at a good case, I don't even want to call it a bull case or a bear case, right? At a good situation, right, you might get a relief rally. You might get back. Bitcoin might increase a little bit and follow a little bit with the business cycle where liquidity starts to, cascade back into Bitcoin and crypto, right? So be prepared to cash out, right? Be prepared to liquidate, right? As a highlight, right? So I treat Bitcoin like a bank, right? So there are still majority of my Bitcoin that are stashed out, that are locked away, and that part of the Bitcoin, I'll never touch it or sell it in the short term, right? What I'm selling right now is my swing bag, my temporary bag that, I need to sell off, liquidate to pay off my lifestyle, right? I still have family, I still have kids, I still, need to buy stuff every now and then, I still need to, pay off my debt for my mortgages and so forth, right? So it's important that, we don't, just keep on hodling forever, right? What I'd like to talk about is, when to get in, when to get out, utilize some of the higher performing asset like Bitcoin. And essentially what I'm trying to do is to pay off more of my mortgages, right? And essentially I'm kind of getting a coasting effect, coasting asset that I can, coast with, that I can have more cash flow over a period of time, right? And what you might also recognize that, yes, we talk about assets, we talk about properties. I don't really get into too much properties discussion right now because I personally don't think, it's the right time to buy a lot of properties and hold them. If you are starting off right now, right? Because even for myself, right, I'm not really investing a lot in properties anymore in the UK, but maybe somewhere else, right? So that's to take into consideration. So that's why, it's important to highlight, take profit. Whenever you get the opportunity, we might get another opportunity, just make sure you do that. But of course, you want to hold good and hard asset like Bitcoin, like properties, like gold for a longer period of time so that they compound, they can generate good cash flow and so forth, right? So that has been what I've worked on, what I think I've been able to create some success that I can retire earlier than many others, and I'll continue to do so whenever I get the opportunity to buy more Bitcoin, right? So yeah, I still have very strong conviction on Bitcoin. Certainly we are going through a very, very scary period. I've been there before, no doubt, right? I want to tell you guys, it could well be a shakeout right now, right? Because historically, Bitcoin certainly does drop more than 30%. We are maybe around 20-25% drop right now. And there could be a relief rally that comes back up, a relief rally that can potentially also bring us to another all-time high for Bitcoin, right? All-time high, meaning exceeding 126,000 US dollars, right? But if you are more like myself, a more conservative investor, that's also trying to protect your capital, right? I would say at any opportunity, remember to take profit. You want to essentially be out of the market by no later than Q2 next year, right? So that's very, very important. The timing of things, right? And that's how I'm like pound cost averaging out too, right? So I still have conviction, but at the same time, I need to be realistic to pay stuff off too, right? So that's why it's really important to take profit along the way. But having said that, what else do I want to talk about? I think somehow I still have some altcoins, right? So these are coins that are not exactly Bitcoin, so that they're not Bitcoin at all, okay? So what I'm trying to do now is to sell as much of that, not immediately, but whenever whenever there's opportunity, whenever there's a peak or so, right? So yes, this video is a lot more about Bitcoin, but I also need to highlight the fact that if you are an altcoin holder like myself, it's time to, de-risk and take profit. And there's always the someone on the internet, social media that would talk about Bitcoin needs to get to all-time high, then it rotates into Ethereum, it rotates into layer one, so forth, right? So, I mean, looking at the situation and looking at how we're progressing right now, there can potentially not be an alt season at all, right? And trust me, you do not want to hold that alternate coins bags for the next coming 4 to 5 years, because it will essentially drop from whatever price now to about 90, 95 or 99% and never increase back, right? So these are some of the positions that I'm working to get out. There could be a relief rally coming out for Bitcoin. That's when some of the rotation might happen. And do not be precious about altcoins. I think it's time to move off and to really stick with Bitcoin, right? So for a lot of the new users that are watching, if you're getting stuck with altcoin, I would say rotate out, rotate into Bitcoin and that was the best thing I did, for the past 2 cycles, right? Bitcoin cycles, right? Where I kind of rotated off from loss-making altcoins, rotate into Bitcoin, and I'm making good money right now, right? So that's like the best thing you might want to do. Or rotate into stablecoin so that you can get back into the more of the low of Bitcoin at a later stage, right? So that's something that you might want to consider, right? But certainly for some of the new users that are thinking of entering right now, personally, I don't think now's the best time to enter into Bitcoin or even to altcoin. Please do not buy altcoin at all right now, right? However, I kind of felt for Bitcoin, it might not be the best time because I kind of felt the bear market will be coming to us real soon, right? Maybe by next year, right? So if you do have some money and you want to have some skin in the game, I would say, you know what, put in 5% of that money into Bitcoin, because it is quite low at 92,000 right now, 91,000 right now, right? And then start to pound cost average and buy in whenever it dips further, right? And I kind of felt if by the time we get into bear market, it's going to dip even more, right? So from that sense, if you are kind of thinking of entering, buy at a later stage or buy now, but not go all in, right? So the best way to buy Bitcoin is always pound cost average, right? That's a very, very important strategy that helped me a lot. And essentially, I think that's how I, achieve good gain. You pound cost average in, and at the same time, you pound cost average out. And for all of the many holders that bought the low, right, the very low, congratulations if you have managed to take profit. If you don't want to hold that huge back and you simply want to take some profit off for the next 3 or 4 years, right? And I've kind of felt the time to do so is right now. There could, of course, be a relief rally that are coming. They could be, okay, they could, it can or cannot be a relief rally coming. So that's important to take note. So if it does, if it retests that 20 days moving average, essentially it might bring us back up to $100,000 for Bitcoin, right? So I kind of anticipate a lot of people will be setting sell at around 95 to 100 or 105,000 USD, right? So that's where I'm also taking some profit off too. And that's it. So whoever is getting into ETPs, UK Bitcoin ETPs, Ethereum ETPs, I wouldn't touch Ethereum ETPs until the bear market hits, right? I think that would be the best time to re-enter Ethereum ETPs, right? I think if anyone are listening to Tom Lee's, the big Ethereum bull, they are talking that Ethereum might hit 10,000 USD by end of year or 15,000 USD by end of year. Realistically, at the current situation, I don't personally see Ethereum hitting that, right? If you're getting into Bitcoin ETPs, I think, we can still wait until, re-enter when the bear cycle hits, right? But if you want to, insist of going in and buy Bitcoin ETP, DCA, right? I think split the money into multiple months, or multiple weeks and just dollar cost or pound cost averaging in. And that's the best way to maximize your gain. Okay. And that's it for now. That's it for today. Stay strong. we're not exactly doom and gloom yet. The worst case, if you're buying Bitcoin, you just be hodl your bag for another 4 years, and it will get into another all-time high again. So that's something to factor in, right? So best thing to do now for myself, I am stacking cash, and I aim to get out of the market for many of my investment, be totally out maybe by early next year, right? I'm you know what? I'm not the best at buying high, but exiting high and buying the low, right? But I still make good profits from it because I practice pound cost average, and I believe any one of you guys can do the same too. Okay, so do not be the sucker that hold your bag for an extended period of time. Remember to take profit. Just have that in mind. Keep on taking profit. Now is the right time to take profit. Whenever you've been given the opportunity, as long as you bought the low and you're selling slightly higher, you are the smart one. Okay, so I'll hit the like, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video, which I think I'll be creating many more videos each week. Okay, thanks for watching my compound life. Stay strong, and we'll do fine. See ya. Thank you.